On this edition of Law Talk, we focus on riding right, staying safe on ORV routes.
Good morning. Another episode of Law Talk here with Sergeant Myers from Lake County. One of the things we've been getting a lot of questions and people commenting on the Facebook page is, the width of the trails, the people going too fast, collisions, and so forth. And we're going to give you a few tips this morning to keep you out of that situation and to kind of dispel some of these myths also. I'll let Sergeant Myers take over from here and give you a few pointers.
All right, well, a couple years back, DNR put out a campaign that said Ride Right. That's basically mirrored after the Snowmobile Ride Right campaign. And there's a lot to that. It's two words, but you're going down this trail. You stay farthest to the right on that trail as you're going. It's just one of those things that it's just safer. It doesn't matter what it is. And if you can't maintain that right side of that trail, you might be going too fast. I mean, it does get bumpy in some sections. The groomer sometimes misses a section. And but primarily that's one of our biggest causes of the accidents that we've been talking about, is especially in corners, is riders not riding furthest to the right. And then when you get into corners, let's talk about corners a little bit. A lot of the corners become banked as we get into the summer season, and if you're not furthest to the right, you slide down, or you're already in that bottom of that corner and you're right there where you're going to get hit by someone coming the other way. Something we do when we ride is we have our machines in four-wheel drive, especially when it's dry like it is today and has been last weekend. We run four-wheel drive when we're out here on the trail, that if there is for some reason where we have to get high on that bank, on that curve, and it's soft sand, the four-wheel drive lets us get up and out of the way.
Right, it'll hold you to the top.
Yeah, it holds us right up there where we belong, because if you're in two-wheel drive, and even if you're on the top, everyone, including myself, when you're oncoming traffic and you didn't expect it, everyone startles a little bit. And if you look where you're at on that trail and you touch that throttle and you're only in two-wheel drive, sometimes your back end will slide down. So that's why we keep it in four-wheel drive, keeps us up there on the top where we belong. And those are just a couple tips to help you stay right.
Awesome.
So we did this quick little example. We talked about riding right, and this goes to show you with everyone exactly as far as they can be to the right side of the trail. This is the only room for error right here. So we want to make sure you pay attention to where your right side tires are, and not a lot of room to give.
And then to dispel a couple myths that are going around, there's, as far as trail safety and so forth, I mean, we have probably the safest system in the state. Unlike what you read on the internet, there are very, very few accidents. We actually even went through this morning. Is in the last 15 to 20 years, as far as anybody knows, there's never been a fatality on the trails themselves. And very few injuries, very few accidents. And another thing that we just learned this morning also is the busiest days are the safest days. Bob can tell you a little bit about that from his experience being out here all the time.
Yeah, we've been finding out the last few years that people become, when it's not as busy, that's the best time to be out here. If you ask anyone who's riding, is when it's not busy. However, what we find is when you're coming up to those corners and you're riding, you haven't seen anyone for a while, people think that they get complacent and nobody else on the trail but me. And as they go along, all of a sudden they're drifting into the middle of the corner, or they're in the middle of the trail and they meant no harm. All of a sudden now someone's coming, and now all of a sudden we have a collision. It's one of those things where, again, you stay to the right and you try to remember that if you treat every corner like somebody's coming, that will definitely help to avoid that. I mean, we've run into some things, some statements and posts here that people would like us to put speed limits on trails, or they would like us to make them one way. There was a committee who did the speed limits. It was decided that was not something that was going to be implemented, at least not at the time of the study. And I said, same thing with I think you posted some comments as well about the one way. There are way too many access points, way too many places here for people to come in, and if a sign gets tore down or a sign gets blown down, all of a sudden someone's coming the wrong way, now we have tragedy. So definitely not a fan of making them one way, at least not at this point, unless there's some better way to bring everyone in and follow every rule.
Right, and we know that's not going to happen. And like I've said over and over again, if you ride to your own and your machine's ability, consider somebody's coming around every single corner. Like Bob says, ride right, and then pay attention to what you're doing.
The legal opinions presented are from the perspective of ORV law enforcement in Lake County, Michigan.